Hello, I'm Pete George, and we are live on Game Changers with Vicki Abelson. Our guest tonight is Pamela DeBar. Woo!
So Pamela, tell us the secret to saying your name, because it's the first time that I know how to say it correctly.
Oh, well, my ex-husband, my wonderful ex-husband, Michael, always says it rhymes with gay bar.
Which I love that.
He's been saying that since the day I met him.
Okay, well, he didn't tell me that. Michael was on my other show when it was The Road Taken, and he was he is so knowledgeable about so many things.
He's so witty.
He is. He's just incredibly. Okay, so tell me how you guys met.
I always felt like a dumb bunny around him because
No.
he's so bright. No, he's so witty. It's so quick.
Well, he also he has an encyclopedia knowledge.
He sure does now.
Of music.
Since he's been a DJ for almost 6 years, yeah.
Did he study to do that?
No, it came very natural to him.
So how did you meet Michael?
I was attempting to be an actress for several years of my life.
Okay, we're going to talk about the soap operas, because that
that's
freaks me out that you did the soap
I
operas.
was on a couple of those.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine, Chuck Wine, who worked with Andy Warhol, very interesting character, wrote a movie for me. And I was playing myself. And Keith Moon was supposed to play the rock star. And I was dating him at the time, if you want to call it that.
We're going to talk about that too.
No, I was seeing him.
Okay.
Anyway, he didn't show up.
He was definitely seeing you.
Yes. He didn't show up. Because, he's a cuckoo bird.
Mm-hmm.
You never know where he is. But anyway, Michael was in town with Silverhead, his band at the time, his glitter band, awesome band.
Mm-hmm.
And he was an actor from childhood.
To Soar with Love, one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yep.
Yeah.
He was an actor from a little boy.
Mm-hmm.
He was doing ads. I remember the Nux Bar Kid was his first
really
commercial. Yeah.
That had to be overseas. They didn't have that here.
No, in England. Oh, he was British.
Yeah.
So
a marquis.
Yes, a marquis, the Marquis de Bar.
So wait, what does that make you? What did that make you?
That made me for many years the Marquesa de Bar.
A marquesa.
Yeah.
Nice. That's nice. You had a title. That's kind of exciting.
Yeah, it was fun. So he showed up.
Mm-hmm.
The AP found him, and that was it. I mean,
instant.
Well, he fell in love with me instantly. I was seeing another guy, and Waylon Jennings and Keith Moon at the time.
I read something about the fact that you were juggling those guys. Who won?
Yeah. Michael.
But between Waylon and Keith.
I was seeing both at the same time.
Yeah, there was no winner. They were both
and those...
They're very different types.
You would think so, but not really.
How so?
Well, they were both wild-assed MFers, man, I'm telling you. Both of them. Both of them in their way. And I loved them both so dearly.
Big-time addicts, alcoholics.
Yeah, they messed around.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them. But they were so much fun, both of them. I'm attracted to genius. I'm attracted to artistic brilliance, and craziness, madness. Somehow I could soothe people like that. It's part of my nature.
Do you is that still what attract? Do bad boys still attract you?
No. Isn't that something?
I
have matured.
I think that's really...
I mean, I'm drawn to them, but I don't go there.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so I saw on your list of men a couple of interesting people, like Woody Allen. Woody Allen?
Well, we dated. I didn't...
You didn't groupie Woody?
No, I didn't. I met him in New York when I was doing that movie with Michael.
What was it called?
Arizona Slim.
Okay.
It was about a pool player, a real guy who called himself Arizona Slim, and myself. Mm-hmm. And Chuck Wine was combining these two crazy worlds together.
Uh-huh.
I was... Wait a minute, what'd you ask me?
I asked you...
I have so much to say.
No, but that's good. Wait, about Woody Allen.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Woody.
So the director's wife knew Woody. And the director's wife, Barbara, went on to marry Timothy Leary after she broke up with that guy.
Wow.
But anyway, that's how I met Woody. I went to a...
Wait, you're on the movie with Michael. You're already doing a thing with Michael. You're doing Waylon.
Well, I wasn't quite doing anything with Michael
Okay.
yet. Michael had just gotten married to someone else.
Oh.
But he did say he fell in love with me that day, and he eventually did divorce the first wife, and we got together. But early on, I was seeing Woody just as a friend, we went to dinner, we went to the movies. He actually took me to see The Exorcist.
Wow. Was he scared? Because he strikes me as the type that would get scared.
Well, he was funny. He sank down in the seat with his, his fishing hat and said, "You can't take kids anywhere these days," when she came down and peed on the floor. It was a very funny moment. He kept shouting out crazy things. It was really great.
Was he fun?
Super fun.
Super fun.
But like this,
Hiding.
He didn't want people. And but the problem was when he tried to actually make out with me, I just couldn't do it. I have to be really attracted, and not that he wasn't attracted. Just
okay, but he had the genius.
Yes, he did.
Okay, so it's not coming up on my feed. Are we on your feed, Pete? I just want to make sure we're live.
Oh yeah.
Okay, because I can't see it. I got to get rid of this screen.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find people. I'm trying to find you people.
Yes, ask me some questions. Ask me some questions.
Okay, it's not on my feed at all.
Yeah, I'm watching it.
Okay,
well, that's good.
That's very weird. I'm glad that you're watching it. I hope somebody else is watching it. Are people on with you? Yeah, it's not on either of my
Mary-Ellen
browsers.
Walsh is on.
Does she have a question?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, good.
What is it?
Yeah, Gary Collins. Did you grow up watching movies with Cicely Tyson? The woman is 95 years young.
That's interesting.
What kind of question
It
is
is
that for
all over
Pamela
social media.
DeBar?
I'm just telling you what it's saying.
Okay.
Yes, I saw Cicely Tyson in many movies. I'm 71 myself, so I've been around a long time.
I love the fact that age doesn't bother me either, and I love the fact that it doesn't bother you.
How can it bother me? I've written books revealing my age.
Absolutely. I'm going to restart my computer because I can't see you people.
Yeah.
And I don't. This is a Mercury retrograde thing. Do you believe in any of that?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
I've been having my chart done since I was a teenager.
Do you know Zoe Moon?
No.
She's a wonderful astrologer. I met her on Facebook 12 years ago, and we've become great friends. And
my astrologer, I've got two, Geraldine in England and Tish in New York, and they're both great.
What sign are you?
Virgo, Leo, Sag.
Mm. So, has this retrograde been impacting you?
Some do and some don't. This one has. Things are being put off and put back, and
Has anybody resurfaced in your life?
That's supposed to happen, right? Yeah, somebody did. Somebody did. But we'll see what happens then.
I had a lot of electrical stuff, but the phone kind of shut down from heat last week. My blow dryer blew up. Yes, some weird stuff.
Happen.
Yeah, some weird stuff's
happen.
been happening. My computer's not working tonight. I'm going to see if I restart, if I could get. But the show is definitely on, right?
It's great.
I don't know what is going on.
Any more questions from someone?
Not yet. I'm
come
gonna
on.
ask them.
I have questions.
Okay.
I'm gonna ask you. So, all right. So, Woody, you weren't attracted, so you couldn't go
No, he tried to make out, and I just couldn't do it. But he wrote me letters for a long time when I came back to LA, and was telling me what movies I needed to see, what music I had to listen to. He was trying to groom me in some kind of way. Of course, I was not young. I was 24.
Oh, and for him
25.
now was an old lady.
Yes. Well, he was young then too. Come on.
Younger.
Yeah.
Was that before Mia? Was that Diane Keaton years or?
Wow, it was 74. 74 was that whole time I was in New York.
Mm-hmm.
When Michael was not there, I was hanging out with Woody.
Wow. Yeah. Did you go on any of his sets? Did you do that?
No, he wasn't doing any movies at that moment.
Uh-huh.
But I went to his house for dinner. It was just incredible. What a house. Oh, my God.
Really?
He had a very fancy chef. It was incredible.
Wow. Okay, we're still not on my computer.
But he's not a rock star, so...
He's not. Okay,
maybe people aren't interested in Woody's genius.
Okay, so let's talk about how all of that started. So you grew up in, was it Kansas? Your parents are from Kansas?
No, I'm from here.
You're from here.
Mm-hmm.
Was your dad from Kansas? Somebody
No.
was. No, where was your dad from?
He was from North Carolina. My mom was from Georgia.
Okay.
But they moved to California when I was very, very young. Oh, no, actually, I was born here. I was incredibly young when they moved here.
All right, my computer is not working, so I can't say what that is. Wait, I wonder if I go on the homepage. I want us to be able to say hi to people.
I know.
And it's not letting me see what this is. So you really have it on your phone, Pete. You're not like just toying with me.
Look,
I'm watching. I was listening.
How is this possible that it's not This is a total.
Okay.
This is a total
refresh. Does it help?
I restarted my computer.
I know.
I'm on 2 different browsers. I mean, this is just bizarreness that we are not on my.
Well, let me continue.
Okay, go ahead.
I was born here.
Okay. And
we moved back to Ohio for a short time. Came back here.
were you a
to
wild
Reseda,
child?
actually.
Oh, really?
No, I was a regular little kid and a regular young teen until, well, I was even sort of regular after I heard Elvis. I was an Elvis fanatic from the age of like 9. And then Dion.
Do you remember
The Wanderer.
like that moment when you were awoken to that?
Of course.
You saw the. Okay.
Oh
What happened?
my God! It was a life-changing moment for a little 9-year-old. My private time with my daddy was to go to antique thrifts, yard
So
sales,
he got you
all that stuff.
started and
Yes,
all. Mm-hmm.
and my mom too. I got my school clothes in thrift stores. I always looked better than all the other kids.
I love it.
My dad took me to a garage sale, and he said, "Choose something." Pick out something.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a friend of his garage sale.
Mm-hmm.
And there was nothing there. There were no dolls. There was no tiny tears and no dolls that wet themselves or anything.
Oh.
But I saw a stack of records, and I had my own little 45 record player. So I went through them, and of course, right away I noticed Elvis because I'd heard of him, right?
Uh-huh.
Seen him on Ed Sullivan, all
Mhm.
that. So I picked Elvis. It was Jailhouse Rock,
Mm-hmm.
and the other side was Treat Me Nice.
Mm-hmm.
I also got a Jerry Lee Lewis, Great Balls of Fire. These were my first 2 records. So I came home and started playing them, and that was it.
How were your parents with you getting turned on to rock and roll?
I was an only child.
Mhm.
This stuff had never happened before. Parents never had to deal with anything like this before,
Mm-hmm.
so they did not know how to handle it.
Were they conservative?
My dad drank.
Mm-hmm.
He played poker. He dug for gold. He was a wild man.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was a bit of a wild man. My mom couldn't tame him. There was no way.
Mm-hmm.
She was a housewife, kind of a frustrated housewife. I think she
Mhm.
wanted to write. In fact, later I found out she really did want to be a writer.
Wow.
But I played the flip side
Mhm.
of Jailhouse Rock, Treat Me Nice,
Mhm.
endlessly, to where my mom said, "Please turn that off." But it was something about the words he was saying.
Mhm.
When you walk through that door, baby, be polite. You're going to make me sore if you don't treat me right.
Mhm.
It's all about treating Elvis right, treating him nice. And I wanted to know how to do that. What does that mean? I was just a kid. But I was totally into Elvis. He went away to the Army. My mom let me keep a calendar on the wall that I could cross out the days every day before he came back. And then I got into Dion.
Okay.
Dion.
There's a poster over here.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you guys can see us. Pete says you can. So
Dion-
this has never happened before.
Dion DiMucci,
Dion.
huge hero of mine.
Mm-hmm.
Still to this day.
Did you ever get to meet him?
Yes, I've met him a couple of times. I just bought tickets for a show in New Jersey. You see what I do. I just got tickets to see my friend Paul Rubens in Austin
And
in a
you
few
just
days.
go.
I just have to. There are certain things I cannot not do.
Clearly, this is something you've always done.
Yeah, well, it's whenever I
Down the
could afford it.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm going to see Dion in New Jersey in July.
Does Dion
Third
still
row
sing?
center. Oh, he sings better than ever.
I heard there's a viral video of him singing in a diner.
Yeah.
Right? Which is so
Yes.
great. But I went to see Frankie Valli, and he doesn't sing. It's all fake.
I know a lot of them can't sing anymore.
He
but
doesn't sing at
Dion
all.
can sing his butt
Wow.
off. He
Okay,
sounds
great.
just like Runaround Sue when he sings it.
Wow.
But he does a whole other thing. He does a whole blues part
Mhm.
of his show. He
Mhm.
has blues records. He's never stopped.
Wow.
He's never stopped.
How old is he?
80.
Okay.
I know.
But he's
Yeah.
still doing it.
He's still doing it so well. I went to the Bronx just to do a
where
Dion
I'm from.
pilgrimage. Have you ever done the Dion pilgrimage?
I have not done
Do
the,
it.
I have not done the Dion pilgrimage.
You know, his street where all of it
my
started.
God. Were they
Doo-wop.
doing doo-wop on the corner? Yeah,
Doo-wop.
sure.
It
Oh,
started
wow.
there with him. Let's face it. And
So how did you meet him?
I met him back in the 80s, late
Mhm.
80s, when I'm with the band had just come out, and a friend of mine who worked with Zappa invited me to his reunion with the Belmonts. Oh my God, it was so incredible. Radio City, it was incredible. So I met him briefly, and it was pleasant. And I met his wife, And it was just one of those joyous things.
Is he still married to the same woman?
Oh, yes. Her name is Sue.
That run around.
I guess she wasn't.
I guess not.
But anyway, he's still just. I never get over my heroes. I still love Elvis. I went to been to Graceland
Did you ever
twice.
get to meet Elvis?
No, saw him twice though. Saw him play twice.
At what stage of his life?
Well, later, you know.
But
Vegas.
like the heavy Elvis.
Don't call him fat.
I caught myself. I caught myself. I stopped. I knew I was going there.
But I never. My heroes are always my heroes.
I love that.
And I appreciate them so much for enhancing my life and uplifting me.
I feel the same way.
Yeah.
So it started with Elvis and Dion.
Yeah.
And I would imagine soon the Beatles
Yes,
must have
it was
happened
the Beatles
soon,
right
right?
afterwards. Yeah. The Beatles. I was 14. It was so perfect. You know, it was meant to be that I was 14 when the Beatles came out. So I became a Paul freak. I hung out with 3 other girls who were the other Beatles, and we just
I was a George.
lived. I don't blame you. We just lived the Beatles. We lived Beatlemania. As I said, and I'm with the band, I slept on a Beatle pillowcase, breathed with Beatle lungs, all of it. I mean, I was obsessed. And I saw them play 3 times. My very first concert was the Beatles at the Hollywood Bowl when I was 14.
Wow, everybody was screaming there behind, screaming like crazy.
Look, we're
right?
on.
Oh, we're on.
I've got to fluff my hair up. I can see that.
We just came. But now we're here. Okay, this is really bizarre that all of a sudden we're here. I don't know what that means. Hi Valerie. Hi Eric. Hi Mary Ellen.
I look fat. Hey,
You
guess
do
what?
not
I'm
look
not fat.
I'm
not fat.
No, you're not fat. It's delayed, but we're there. Okay, we're there.
Good.
All right. So, did you get to meet the Beatles?
Yes, I've met all 4 of them eventually.
Oh.
It took a lot of my lifetime to get to
Okay,
meet all
who was
of
your
them.
first Beatle that you met?
Ringo. I was in a movie called 200 Motels.
Yes,
Frank Zappa
Zappa.
produced, and and Ringo was in it. He played Frank. And I got to go to dinner with Ringo. And still when I see him to this day, he says hi to me and remembers my name. He's a really sweet gentleman.
Did he live up to your expectations when you
All
met
of
him?
them did.
All of them.
Well, no, not John.
Okay, so tell me about that.
Well, John was in the Kotex on the Head phase, and he was mean. Keith Moon introduced us, and he was so proud to introduce me to my second Beatle, but John was leaning on a door frame, and he was in a real surly state of mind and really out of it, and he said, Pamela, John, John, Pamela, Pamela, John, John, Pamela, Pamela, John, John, Pamela. It wasn't very nice.
Oh. All right, tell me about Paul.
I met him last. I met George in a really glorious way.
Okay, tell. Because he's lovely.
Well, I met
He
him
was
a
lovely,
couple
right?
of times. I met him first with the GTOs. We were at A&M Records. We were going to get our photos taken for the centerfold of Rolling Stone, the groupie issue, very famous issue.
Yes.
And we were walking in there and all dressed up, and we bumped right into George. Well, Miss Cinderella bumped into him. She had a big butt. We called her Pumpkin Butt. She bumped right into George, and he turned around and said, "Who are you girls?" He was just enthralled with us. He was a big flirt. And
was he?
We said, we are the GTOs, and he said, "I've heard of you girls." Yeah, it was thrilling.
Wow.
And as I walked away, I was just giddy. He said, "You've got pretty legs." He told me that.
Wow.
Then I met him again at Bob Dylan's house, one of the best days of my life.
Okay, we're going to talk about that too.
Let's talk about it right now.
Let's talk about Bob.
He's
all right,
my ultimate hero.
I know he is.
Yeah.
All right, but wait. So George, the second time you met him, did he remember meeting you? Did he know that he knew you?
Well, he didn't know me back in the GTOs.
No, but I mean,
that
did
was
he...
very brief.
Mm-hmm.
So, no.
How much later was it?
Many years. It was
Okay.
Bob's 50th birthday.
Ah.
So I was invited
Mm-hmm.
because I had met Bob a couple of times with his girlfriend at the time. So I never flirted with Bob. I never do that.
You have a code.
Yeah, I totally do.
Okay.
And
That's good for people to know because I'm sure not everybody would think that.
Yeah.
So that's important.
Well, I do have a bad rap, but only by people who haven't read my books, because the word groupie has been maligned. And
what is the word groupie mean? What's your definition of the word groupie?
love of music, love of musicians, period.
Mm-hmm.
You can hang out with them and not have sex with them. You can take them shopping. You can, I don't know. You can do anything. I used to sew buttons on their shirts. I didn't necessarily sleep with all of them, that's for sure. We had a lot of good friends, that were musicians, GTOs. But anyway, George Harrison that day, it was so funny because it was the Wilburys time, which is so fantastic. But they were all there before Roy passed, and they had all pitched in and gotten Bob a jukebox for his birthday, a vintage one, a really beautiful old jukebox. And I remember being in Bob's den with the entire traveling Wilburys, okay?
Wow.
And trying to maintain myself.
God.
And they couldn't figure out how to turn the jukebox on. They were sitting around like this, looking at it, touching it, poking it. And Tom Petty was kind of standing there looking around, and he looked down, and it wasn't plugged in. Frickin' thing was not plugged in. So Tom became a hero that day.
So how did you? I know Dylan was your.
He is. How'd
you meet Bob?
I met him at a party. A few different times I met Bob, but the first time we had a connection, and it just didn't. Anyway.
Virgo Gemini, pretty good though.
Tell him that, okay? He's still here, Bob.
Is he still does he have a woman in his life?
Yes, he does, apparently. But he's so mysterious, but apparently he does. But I was dancing by myself to some Motown music at a girlfriend's birthday party, and I felt arms encircling me, and it was Bob.
Oh, shit.
And he was behind me, and he was dancing in a real kind of kooky way behind me for quite some time.
Approximately when was this?
He was, about to turn 50. He's now 78.
Unbelievable.
It was too long ago. I've tried so hard to remake his acquaintance. Yeah. But, and then at his birthday party, we sat together with George. I was sitting there with Bob and George. It was almost too much.
Absolutely crazy.
And George had read I'm with the band. And I was just beside myself over that. And he said, "I'm not in it, unfortunately."
That's a good impression. Oh, unfortunately for both of us. Oh my God.
And then he had someone with him. He was his mechanic.
That's bizarre.
And he introduced me to his mechanic, and he said, he works with engines the way you and I work with words.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's lovely.
So that was one of the best days of my life. Then...
That's pretty lovely.
Then Bob said, we should write together.
What? What?
Yeah.
Did you do it?
He said, maybe we could work on a screenplay. But anyway, he took my phone number. And I wasn't home when he called.
Oh, no, stop.
Yeah. He called. About a week later, I was at the gym, like a good girl. And I called home. I had a little assistant at the time because I was making a few bob. And I said,
No.
I said, did anybody...
I thought that was on purpose. I thought that was like a code word for money that I didn't know.
I said, did anybody call? And she said, no. Oh, yeah, wait a minute. Yeah, Bob Dylan called. What?
Oh, my God. But that's like divine intervention that you got saved from something somehow. No. We don't look at it that way, do we?
No, we do not.
Dee Wallace would tell you to look at it that way. That you were saved from something.
No.
No.
But you know what? We're not dead yet, neither one of us. That's
like
what
that.
I say.
I like that. So, okay, and so how about Sir Paul? How'd you meet Paul?
I met him at a gig, my friend Brian Ray, who I did a podcast with.
I listened to it.
Oh, cool.
I did, yeah.
He invited us. He invited Michael and I to see Sir Paul. And it was an amazing show. And we were driving home, and Brian called Michael on the phone and said, "You want to meet Paul?" He was like, "Yeah, no. I think we'll just go on home." So we went to a party where he was, and I was just scared. I could not go near him. I mean, I was just
How long
standing.
ago was this?
Oh, gosh, probably 15 years or something. Pretty early on when Brian was playing with him. And I was just standing there gaga, and some strange man came up and said, "Have you met Paul?" And I said, no, no, no. And I had my book. I had I'm with the band. I was going to give it to him if I got brave enough. And this guy said, oh, come on over. I didn't even know the man. Never saw him again either. And he said,
You have great skin, by the way.
oh, thank you.
Just noticing.
And he said, Paul, this is Pamela, because I told her. Mm-hmm. And I just kind of handed him the book. And he was like, oh. And he looked at me with those freaking eyebrows.
Oh,
and
God.
Unfortunately, he was with Heather. And he looked over at her and back at me and over. He said, we haven't met before, have we? No, I wish, but no. And he thumbed through the book, and it was a great moment.
Wow.
Yeah. But he was with Heather.
Yeah. God damn it. So, and you're both not dead yet either. So,
He's married.
Well, yeah, but things change. Not that I'm wishing that on him, but you never know what's going to happen. All right, so let's go back to the beginning. So how it started for you. So Dion, not at all. You don't have the.
No, I don't have the whooping anything.
The coronavirus, which now is in California. Don't go to Orange County, anybody. Crystal, I'm worried about you.
I get little allergies in the valley. Yeah, that's what it is.
So you have to see these coasters. Look at this coaster.
I keep having to fluff my hair up. It looks flat.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to look there. I'm afraid what I'm going to see. So Dion and Elvis, you're 14.
The Beatles.
You go see the Beatles. Okay.
Chased after him, tried to meet him, couldn't do it.
Didn't work.
Cops drove us away. It's all in. I'm with the band.
Yes, but we're giving a little synopsis.
Yeah.
We're not going to give the whole thing away because we want people to buy the book, and I'm going to give links to all the books.
Oh,
well, we're going to go through all of
Okay,
them.
good.
Do we have any physical books here? All right.
In another room.
Okay, so I'm going to give the links and you'll be able to find them. So, okay, so you can't meet the Beatles. You haven't been able to meet the Beatles.
I couldn't meet the Beatles.
Who do you
It was very
meet?
frustrating. I started going to the Sunset Strip. The first time I went to Hollywood was to see Captain Beefheart play.
God.
Now most people don't even know who he is, which is a crime.
If you know Zappa, you know Captain Beefheart.
Yeah, Beefheart was my first real introduction to rock and roll and changed my life forever. His cousin, Victor Hayden, painted these paintings on the wall.
Nice.
He was the mascara snake in the Magic Band, and he took me to meet Don Van Vliet, Captain Beefheart, and that was it. I'm telling you.
Was it personally? I mean, did you have a?
We became
intimate...
friends.
Okay.
Oh no, we were just friends, and he looked me up and down, and said, "You're a gas. I wish there were more people like you."
Oh.
Really?
No.
I was just a little kid.
How
high
old
school.
were you?
16.
Oh wow.
And so then I started going into Hollywood. I realized I was in the valley, over the hill. It was Oz, and I started going over the hill and meeting the bands. I mean, I wasn't going to say no. I mean, I tried very hard to meet the Beatles and couldn't do it. I was too green, couldn't figure it out. But the Byrds were the first band I met there. I loved the Byrds. They were my favorite
John
band
York.
for a long time. Oh no, that was much later.
So wait,
First Byrds.
the first Byrds. So
65.
Oh, this is 65.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
did you have to figure out a way to get to them?
I'll tell you how I did it.
Okay,
and
go ahead.
I do these rock and roll tours, and I tell these stories on my rock tours too. Because I take them to the places. But the Byrds were playing Ciro's. I was too young to get in. I wanted to see them.
Did they
how do I
card
do
in
it?
those days?
Did they what?
Card?
Oh yeah.
Because
Oh,
in
yeah.
New York they didn't card.
Oh yeah, they did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, those doors there, where do those doors go? I bet they go backstage. I think I'm going to knock on that door. And the girls I was with, they were saying, oh, you can't do that. You can't do that. So I did that. And the door opened. I can still see it. You know how certain things are like a photograph?
Yeah.
The door opened. Roger McGuinn, Jim then, of course, opened the door, handed me a joint, and said, come on in. That's how I met the Byrds, and I was there while they tuned up to go on stage with just them and the roadie, and I got to see the show from the side of the stage. So I was.
Did your girlfriends come in with you?
No, they didn't come in. No. I was the one who knocked on the door. So that's how it went on from there, and it was easy back then. It was easy. Then
you would just do backstage stuff. You'd get in because you were underage. And were you already starting to have relationships?
I was wanting to. I was really hoping to. I didn't have that right away I didn't. You know, I was so young. I had a boyfriend in high school, and
How did he feel about
we
you
broke
doing
up. We broke up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
of course.
he
Yeah.
would. Yeah, we're still good friends though.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to see him while I'm in Vegas this week. Bobby Martini.
Okay, so
He still says Bobby Martini.
do you
So
watch
great.
The Voice?
I have, but
Did
I
you-
don't know.
Okay, so my first love's daughter just kicked ass on the first
Oh.
Voice, got a 4-chair turn, and they
Oh.
fought over her.
Wow,
Yes,
that's cool.
it's so cool.
That's cool.
So, okay, so yes, and
So I just started meeting bands, and then I met some incredible wild ass girls, and we started dancing together on stage with these different bands. And one of the girls, Miss Christine, was Frank Zappa's governess. So she invited us up eventually to meet Frank, and
oh, did I love
I
Frank?
know.
Oh my
And
God.
he just loved us all. We spent so much time at the cabin, and we danced with them. We called ourselves the Laurel Canyon Ballet Company. We danced with the Mothers and Love and
Jesus.
Doors and Buffalo Springfield, and
Oh my God.
I mean so many different bands. And then
You're not in town for Love and Spoonful, the Wild
no,
Honey thing.
I would go. I went
Yeah.
last year, but I'm going to be in Vegas. It's my doll con.
And talk about why you go to Vegas.
I
Where you
teach writing workshops all over the, I say the world because I go to London and Toronto to teach, but mainly in America.
Mm-hmm.
And I have many
Groupie therapy?
groups. I call it groupie therapy. It's girls writing and sharing their insides and becoming best friends with each other and figuring everything out while they write. It's just magic. It really is. So I'm my second annual doll con. I call all my girls my dolls. And I have like 35 of them writing together this weekend
Fantastic.
in Vegas. And I take them to my favorite antique malls and my thrift stores and my favorite little restaurants and downtown only. Stay off the strip entirely.
Where do you do the workshop?
We rented a big house this time. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And everybody stays?
Yeah, we all stay. Some stay in the hotel and some stay in the house, depending on who got the house first.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're hanging out with these fun girls, and you're at Zappa's, and you're dancing, and is that how the GTOs happen?
Yeah.
Mhm.
One day he said, I have a record label now, which we knew, of course, and I think you girls would make a really great group. You should write some songs about your lives, because we would tell him stories about what we were getting up to, and he would just crack up. And he thought it was important enough to save what these crazy girls were doing in Laurel Canyon in 1968.
So, like, what's a story you might have told Zappa back then?
We just told him every story about all our crushes on the boys we had. We told him once about our gym teachers. We talked about everything. We were just teenage girls, you know.
So he didn't have kids yet.
He had Moon. She was
Okay.
6 months old when I met her.
Mm-hmm.
I did a podcast with her too. And
Tell them about your podcast and how they can find it.
Miss Pamela's. No, actually, I just changed it. It's Pamela Des Barres Pajama Party, and it's on every platform: Spotify, iTunes, everything.
Okay.
So it's very easy to find. Pamela Des Barres Pajama Party.
Excellent.
Yeah. And I had Moon Zappa on recently, and oh my!
So you've known her whole life.
Her whole life, and Dweezil too.
And did you babysit for them for a
Yes,
while?
I was the governess.
The governess.
And I lived there for years, off and on.
Really?
3 years at one point. Yeah, I took care of those babies. They were like my very own kids.
And obviously close to Gail, I assume.
Very close to Gail. They were a family. They were my family, besides my family. So I've had a very interesting life.
You have. So tell us about Frank. I worship Frank. So what was he like
He was
in
enigmatic.
real life?
He was enigmatic and mysterious.
Mm-hmm.
He retained that glow even when we were really tight. You know, he would disappear down
I
into
heard
the
he would be in the
basement.
studio,
Yeah.
like for long.
Yeah, he would
periods of
disappear
time.
for days working.
Mm-hmm. He was a genius.
Yeah.
I saw him at Carnegie Hall with like a huge orchestra, and everybody was doing something different. I mean, it was so eclectic. It was wild.
He was so brilliant.
Mm.
What a loss.
So, So did you go through that whole illness and all of that with them as well?
No,
Mhm.
it was family.
Mhm.
That was family, and that was it. You know, when he got down to the wire. I mean, I saw him up until it was so tragic. Same with Gail. Can't believe they're both gone.
So so you're living on and off with Zappa. You're the governess. You have the GTOs,
And we do a record.
mm-hmm.
And it's hard to believe that we actually were in the studio doing a record with Frank Zappa. Lowell George was our co-producer. I know. He's such an important figure. And he had a big crush on me. I just loved him. Oh.
Did you sleep with Lowell?
No.
Ooh.
No. You know, I loved him, but not in that way. And I just, we were attracted to who you're attracted
That's
to,
right.
you know. You can't help that.
So who was your first rock star?
The first one I actually slept with all the way, because I was 19 and a half. I held on to it, baby.
Really?
Yeah.
I was 14 and a half, but that's another
see.
story.
His name is Nick St. Nicholas, who I also did a podcast with.
Mm-hmm.
He was in Steppenwolf, and he was the bass player, and he still plays bass in a band called the World Classic Rockers.
Mm.
And we've stayed friends all these years, too.
Nice.
So it's pretty great. So he was but he broke my heart into smithereens at the time. Oh, my God. And then my first three were bass players.
Go ahead.
My second was Noel Redding.
Mm-hmm.
And my third was Chris Hillman, who I was in a relationship with off and on for like 30 years.
Really?
Yeah. Real true love. Real main true love, yeah.
Is that still something that could pop up
Oh,
again?
no, he's very much married.
Mm-hmm.
His wife hates me.
I bet she does.
One of those things. I'm sorry.
Mm. But you kept resurfacing?
Yeah, very servicing.
So who was your first, like, of the Mick Jagger, Jimmy Page, Keith Moon? Was he?
No, he was later. He was right before I met Michael.
Mm-hmm.
But it was Jimmy Page, I suppose. He was, I used to keep track.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I'd slept with way more people than I have. And I started adding them up. And it's really nothing compared to so many of my friends. But it's just because I happen to write a book about it. People think I'm just a loose woman. I'm not.
Okay, so let's talk about that. So what was the criteria for making that decision to go for it with someone?
Gosh, that's a good question. I wanted to be in love, but I realized at a certain point, okay, I'm not going to wind up with Mick Jagger, but I still want to be with him. Mm-hmm. I've crushed on him forever, but that story's weird too, because I was with Jimmy Page and I was really in love with him, and he acted like he was in love with me, and maybe he was at the time. I don't know. He was very, very romantic and
really.
Oh God, yeah.
How so?
Well, he was just mushy and romantic and loving and adoring and all of that, and promising me various things.
How long were you with Jimmy?
Oh, it's just a few months, But then again, he'd come to town. I'd do them again and again. But Mick was trying to get with me at the same time, and because they would station themselves here in '69. The most amazing tour ever. I saw that tour many times on stage.
Mm-hmm.
But they would stay in L.A. and fly out, just like Zeppelin. They would stay in L.A. because that's where they wanted to be and fly out to these gigs. But the Stones were recording. Mm-hmm. So I spent a lot of time with Mick before I slept with him because I was trying to be true to Jimmy Page. It's just the way it was. And
did
finally
by your own
convinced me.
decision to do it, or did Jimmy want you to do it?
No, he wanted me to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, he wanted me to, just be with him.
Mm-hmm.
But when I actually found out, because Mick kept saying, "You think he's being true to you out there on the road?" I said, "Yes, he is." Anyway, he wasn't. So I said, "Okay," and I waited till the last day before Mick left town, and I really kicked myself for that. But we had a
Was
great
there
time.
a hot tub story with Mick or something? I seem to recall.
No hot tub.
Okay, was there a bat?
No hot tub.
Someone there was a tub with somebody that you told a story at
No,
Women Who Write when
no
I
tub.
first met you. Okay,
No tub.
So did Mick live up to your expectations?
Oh yes, in every kind of way. He was so charming and so effervescent and so joyous and so happy to be who he was, and so grateful to be who he was.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. When I went to London too, I spent a lot of quality time with him there.
So Mick is another one that you would come back around with?
Uh-huh. And that was you could do that in those days, and no one was getting sick from it, and you could just be who you wanted to be and share yourself with all kinds of people. It was just so great. I'm so thrilled I got to live through that. That era was my youth,
So was there judgment on you? How did your parents deal with that?
My dad worked nights.
Mm-hmm.
Some friends of mine, the McCartney ladies, bought me a shirt that says, "My dad worked nights."
Mm-hmm.
It explains a lot.
So you were able to sneak out and get away?
Yeah, well, I didn't have to sneak. I mean, I would say, "Mom, I'm going out with my girlfriends," and I would do that, and like I said, I was 19 and a half before I actually did the full deed, and I told my mom about it. She and I were incredibly close. I was an only child, so.
How was her reaction to that?
She, was concerned, but I was almost an adult, really, at that point, and she was, she went through so much with me because I was a wild kid, Once I got into music, I was a wild kid. Before that, I was just a normal kid, I think. Look what it did to me.
Did you go to college?
Nope. I took some writing courses here and there, but I never.
How are you making a living?
Oh, I do almost anything.
Like?
I mean, I worked at a candy store. I worked in a record store. I made shirts. Finally, when I started making shirts for guys that I loved, I had to show Chris Hillman how much I loved him. So I hand embroidered these cowboy shirts, and I would bleed into the thread. And oh my God, I was so in love with him. And so, but then I thought, well, this is a good way to make a living. So I started making shirts.
How long were you with Chris Hillman?
Off and on,
Did you ever come close to
winding up with him?
Yeah.
No. There were a couple times it seemed like possible, but it's just as well,
Did you have breakups with these guys? Did you have a breakup with Jimmy Page?
Jimmy Page was great when we broke up.
Well, let's hear about that.
People think that you would just be tossed away. It was never like that. It was never like that back then. It may have changed in the hair metal days, and there were so many more groupies, But Jimmy, actually, on his birthday, he had just sent me this gorgeous necklace for Christmas and everything. But on his birthday, January 9th, he met a girl named Charlotte, and he fell madly in love with her. And they wound up together for a long time. They had a daughter. So the next time they were in town, he called me, invited me over, and told me the story and said, I'm sorry, I fell in love with someone, blah, blah, blah. Of course, that didn't last, and I saw him a few times after that.
That had to be crushing on that at that time, no?
Yes, it was, but I'd heard about her, and there was no internet, of course, there were no phone machines. It was the groupie tom-toms told us what was going on.
The groupie tom-toms.
That's what I called them. Yeah.
Yeah, so there were people in every port, kind of.
Not every port, because I was a super groupie. I got taken places.
So, what was your first little excursion? Do you remember?
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Of course I do. Noel Redding took me to New York with the Jimi Hendrix Experience.
Jesus Christ. So, what was that like?
Well,
what was Jimmy like?
He was very mysterious.
Did you sleep with him?
No.
Oh.
I was never in one band. Are you kidding me?
Okay.
No, I was with Noel. I was in the Foxy Lady video. It was a It was a short film back then, called a short film. And I met this guy, Alan, a really great guy. I did love in, and he asked me to be in this short film for this band from England. And it was a Jimi Hendrix Experience. Jesus. I walked into this crazy, big round house up in the hills, and there was the fucking Jimi Hendrix Experience.
Jesus.
So I was the Foxy Lady that day. I got to dance on a pedestal behind him
and
frolic with him in a field all day, and I wound up with Noel. Jimmy hit on me, and I was like, ah! Wasn't ready for him.
Really? How so?
Well, he was just bigger than life. He was just majestic.
He had to be sexy as fuck.
It was unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
In the book, I said even his pockmark sizzled. He was really hot.
Oh
Noel, on the other hand, was this tiny little Englishman,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought, I can handle him.
How
But
long
he
were you with him?
waited.
Yeah.
I saw him every time he came to town,
Mm.
and then he took me to New York. It was a big deal. And I remember walking with the Hendrix Experience into the factory.
Mm-hmm.
Andy Warhol was having a big party. And I was walking kind of behind them. They were walking, and as they walked, they held their hands out like this, and everybody put drugs in their hands, and they took them all. They didn't even know what they were.
Wow.
Scared me. I didn't do that. I never did that stuff.
I was going to say, what was your
I
experience
took
with
drugs.
and stuff?
I
Yeah.
took drugs, but I was not addictive, thanks to my darling mother. My father was, but I got my mother's genes in that way.
Lucky you.
Yeah.
I'm an addict, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I fell in love with Alive because my dad was.
Mm-hmm. A little Alan
Yeah.
Wow. So you walk in there and they're handing everybody. Wow. And
It's quite a story, and it's a long story, and somehow I made a living out of it, and
when did that start happening?
One never realizes that anything like that could ever happen.
Mm-hmm.
When somebody writes a book, you don't know if one person is going to read it or buy it.
Mm-hmm. What motivated you to start?
And my first book, I'm with the band, was I really consider that to be a real door opener for a lot of people because I was no one, and I wrote a memoir. There just didn't exist really. I mean, yes, it had famous names in it, but I was really no one. No one really had heard of the GTOs really. I mean, it was a short-lived thing. Now a lot of people know who we were.
Right.
The album's very collectible. But I just wanted to tell that story, and it happened in an interesting way. I was doing an interview with Stephen Davis for Hammer of the Gods, the first Zeppelin book, and after our interview, he said, "You should write your book." And it was, wow, this big author thinks it's an important enough story. And then at the same time, I would always take creative writing workshops just for fun. My teacher, I wrote about the Stones for her. And she went, oh my God. Showed it to her husband, who was a publisher, and she said, you should write it. So that was very encouraging. So I started writing on with the band. I got a lot of rejections.
How long did it take you to write?
All my books take about a year and a half because I have a big life otherwise. I can't just sit every day and write. So it takes me about 18 months to write a book.
It took me 11 years, but that's, until I finally published it.
Uh-huh.
But I didn't sit with it the whole time, but yeah, from start to finish. So, all right, so before we get to the book coming out and everything, so you're having this life, you're doing odd jobs to make money, you're on the road when you can be on the road and go with guys, and you're falling in love with them?
Some of them. I fell in love with Jimi. He took me on the road too. It was a big, big, big deal. Took me to Texas, New York, and it was that's super groupie time. But then then life happens, and he met Charlotte and all that.
Who came after him?
I started seeing Keith Moon and Waylon at the same time. Well, I saw Waylon on and off for years. I first got introduced to Waylon by Graham Parsons, who was a very dear friend of mine. And Graham turned me on to country music, or otherwise I wouldn't care about it at all. He expanded my entire reality by turning me on to country music. George Jones, Merle Haggard, Waylon, Ray Price, Willie.
Willie.
And Waylon was hot, okay?
Yeah.
So I decided to go after him. He was completely out of my reality in a whole other world. And at the time, he did not have long hair. And he had a quiff and these black leather wristbands and a squint. I mean, he was tough. But I saw him play, and I said, okay, that's it.
How'd you go after him?
I went to his gigs. Half naked, basically, in my underwear, way before Madonna came out in her underwear. And, my spike heels and stockings and stuff. And I would throw daisies at his feet. I had to get his attention. I did, believe me. And one night he just invited me to a recording session. Honky Tonk Woman, actually, amazing version. And came home with me after. And boy, what a trip. When I opened the door, well, actually, he came over a couple hours later. It was about 5 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Those were days,
Mm-hmm.
right? I opened the door to him, and it was like, oh my God, what am I in for? Oh my God. Turned out to be great, though. Turned out to be great.
Did anybody disappoint you? Was anybody disappointing?
In what way?
Just not what you like, because you kind of fall in love with these guys, kind of.
Well, I
in a
loved
fashion.
them. I
You
knew I
loved
wasn't
them,
going to
yeah.
wind up with Waylon Jennings
Mm-hmm.
and move to wherever he was, Nashville. I don't even know where he lived at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever he was in L.A., I was his girl.
How long did that last?
About 3 years. Same with Keith Moon. I was seeing both at the same time.
And did they know about each other, and how did that work?
They didn't care.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I mean, Waylon was married, which I didn't know. In those days, you didn't know unless they told you. There's no way of finding out about Jessie Coulter. There was no way. I knew nothing about her at all. And, of course, felt pretty bad about it when I did find out.
Mm-hmm.
When I finally met Shooter, his son,
Mm-hmm.
many years later, when he had this great band called Stargun,
Mm.
he said, I think of you as some long-lost weird aunt. And he told me about his dad talking about me like
Wow.
just a couple weeks before he died, and I hadn't seen him in a long time. So that was very touching that I made some sort of mark for these people.
Did you fantasize that you would end up with any of them? I mean, I would think you must
Jimi,
have.
yeah. Because Jimi led me on to that. Mick never led me on to that. Mick and I were having fun. Keith and I were having fun. Waylon and I were having fun. But, yes, I hoped Chris Hillman would one day, see the light.
Mm-hmm.
And Jimi, I assumed, really, at one point, that we were going to wind up together. But that was silly. I was just a kid.
Mm-hmm.
That's another thing. You have to remember I was a kid in these days.
Mm-hmm.
I was 20 years
It's not
old.
Something you perpetuated?
What do you mean perpetuate?
I mean, when did you end up... Was Michael your first husband?
Yeah, my only husband.
Your only husband. And so, how old were you when you married Michael?
Well, we met when I was 25, and it was his 26th birthday.
Okay. And from then on, you were...
Yes.
So that period was fairly short for you.
Yeah, really, if you think about it. Yeah, I was from 16, well, it was 11
19.
years.
Well, but the 19 is when...
But I was started hanging out with bands
Right.
and doing other things besides going all the way.
Yeah.
So for about 11 years, I was a groupie. Before the word existed, I was hanging out with Jim Morrison before the word existed.
Okay, so let's talk about Jim Morrison. So tell me about Jim Morrison.
We're getting there.
Okay.
Yeah, I have to be somewhere.
Of course she's got to be somewhere. Pamela, J-Bar.
Jim Morrison was someone it's a long story, but he lived next door to a friend of mine before the Doors' first album came out, and I was a big Doors fan. And I wasn't taking any drugs except the Iron Butterflies bass player got a crush on me. He worked at a hospital during the day, and he was a janitor, and he spilled some stuff, and it got him stoned out of his mind. He started smuggling it out of the hospital. It was called Trimar, there's the ethylene, something. But we shortened it to Trimar, and I was inhaling this stuff, and getting very, very high, and seeing the Doors, and just saying, okay, I've never seen anything like this in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I became a big fan. And one day I heard the Doors music being played next door to my friend, before I knew he lived there, and I said, wow, what cool person has an unreleased Doors album? And I was high enough on this Trimar to go down there and look in the door, and it was Jim, listening to his own record, And all he had on was his black leather pants. I know.
Wow, what a sight.
I know, it was an amazing sight. He was digging around the refrigerator, and he was singing along with the end.
Oh, God.
And I was high enough. I went back to tell my girlfriend. She said, oh, go back down there, be a good neighbor. So I went down, and I had just learned how to do a back bend. Just learned how to do it. I said, I'm going to show the Lizard King how I do a back bend. So I just did it for him on his very tatty Oriental rug, and he stood there going, get it on. And his wife, common-law wife, Pam, came in and saw me in the back bend. It was really bad timing on my part.
Oh, my.
And she said, get the fuck out of my house. So I scrambled back up to my friend's house, and he followed me. And we rolled around snorting this stuff for hours. Yeah. And then I met him the next day at the show, and I was so high on this stuff. We were making out all over the place.
Was he a good kisser?
Oh, amazing, amazing. But the face, you see the face above you, it's too much. So I followed him on. We heard Light My Fire, and what is that? Jim went, oh, okay. Because sometimes the band would just start playing. They didn't know where he was. And then he'd show up. So anyway, that's what happened. So I followed him, though. I was so high. I was dragging my old tatty coat, my fake fur coat, and a big jug of Trimar, and followed him on stage with the Doors. I was standing there on stage with him.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long did that relate? How long did he stay in your life?
Well, he was a one-woman man. So, but, I'd see him around. We hung out various times. He was a Hollywood fixture back then.
So,
A drunken one.
So I started to ask before, did anybody disappoint you? Was anybody not, because you would know these people, you were a fan first.
Yeah.
Did anybody not live up to what you hoped they'd be? That's really good.
No, not at all. I was just enjoying my life. You think about how young I was and the situation I was in, and the most perfect timing music-wise and sex-wise and socially and spiritually, every kind of way. It was the perfect time to be young. So I just ate it up every day.
Did anybody way exceed your expectations, or did everybody way exceed your expectations?
Well, I gotta say, Mick was a very cool guy. Mick was just a fun-loving, smart, never got too messed up. And Robert Plant, same. Leos, in control.
But Robert, you didn't.
No, we were friends. We made out a couple times.
Because same band rule
is
going on there.
We thought about it a few times, but yeah.
When was the last time you saw Mick?
Mick's having a bad dream. My son's having a bad dream. I saw Mick a long time ago. He's someone I would love to be back in touch with, just so he could see that I've turned out okay,
Because you were just a girl.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's race through. So you and Michael fall in love. Michael falls in love with you.
Yes.
You fall in love with Michael.
We get married. We have a kid.
And how is that now being domesticated?
Well,
were you domesticated?
I was just going to say.
Yeah.
Well, when Nick was born, of course, I went through the whole mommy phase. I got semi-normal and did the whole mom thing. I mean, of course, I'm still a devoted mom, and he's a devoted dad. And so, yeah, sort of. I mean, if Michael was in all these bands. He was in Power Station. He was an actor. I was still trying to act at the time. And I started writing on with the band when Nick was about 5.5. Because he started kindergarten and everything. I had time. So that's when that happened.
How did the soap operas happen? And was that fun for you?
Right after Michael and I met and started trying to settle down, I got a job on a soap, Search for Tomorrow. And it was a long job. And we went back and forth from New York and L.A. And it was not really... I wish I could say it was a lot of fun. It wasn't. It was hard work, actually. And it lasted about 6 months. And I've done other little bit parts and things, but acting, I realized, I was 30, and I said, this just isn't going to happen. So that's when I started writing, about 34, I guess, I finally started writing.
And did it surprise you, the success of
Oh, yeah,
the band?
Totally surprised me. I remember where I was when I got the news I was on the bestseller list. Yeah, it was just so incredible. I was in Miami on tour, the second tour with the book because it was going so well. And I had just seen Don Johnson, one of my true loves, on the set of Miami Vice. And walking to a radio station, my agent called and said, "You're on the list." It was so thrilling. It was number 10 at first, and it got up to number 6 eventually.
Oh, my God. All right, so now I read something about, before we get to Don Johnson, Michael Richards?
He was someone I dated for a while, yes.
That seems out of your sort of wheelhouse a little bit.
I met him through a very good friend, Ed Begley, and I always had a crush on him.
I love Ed and Rochelle.
Always had a crush on Michael because he's a genius, attracted to genius. So we dated for several months. It was very interesting.
I bet. And okay, so Don Johnson, was he at the height of his fame when you were?
No.
No.
He was a struggling actor
Mm.
and singer, songwriter. He's always been that.
Mm-hmm.
And he lived next door to Chuck Wine, the guy who finally did Arizona Slim.
Mm-hmm.
And we just fell in love, one of those things. Kids.
How long did you?
He was 23, I was 22. A year. But we're still friends to this day.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Any that got away that you, besides Bob?
Hillman. I mean, he ultimately got away.
Mm-hmm.
But
anybody you never, did that you would.
Prince. I was so into Prince for so long. And Bruce.
Mm.
Prince and Bruce, the people that saved the 80s music, thank God.
Did you get to meet Prince?
Yeah, very briefly. He's incredibly shy. I lived in Minneapolis, but...
How about Bruce?
Bruce, met him very briefly, yeah.
So, is there anything you haven't done that you would still like to do?
I'd like to wake up. Oh no, I'm a very spiritual person.
Mm-hmm.
I meditate, I go see gurus, I have my beautiful spiritual teacher. My book after the one I'm writing now, which I can't talk about, is my spiritual life.
Do you have a
Sex, God, and Rock and Roll?
Sex, God, and Rock and Roll?
Mm-hmm.
I like it. Do you have a mantra?
No, I
Okay,
don't.
I
I
meditate
don't. I
without.
just I want the peace of it. I want this complete serenity of it.
Well, how do you? I'm curious how you meditate because I have a lot of trouble. I have to do guided meditations.
I do those sometimes,
Mhm.
and other times I can just lift off.
You can?
You just never know. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I started studying self-realization in high school. That's how long I've been doing it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't know that. Right alongside my rock and roll has been my spiritual life, and so I'm going to write that book. But I'm writing a book now that I can't talk about, but I can soon.
Okay.
Exciting.
I don't know what's involved in the secret. I'm guessing that an option or something is involved, or something that makes
We've
it
already
secret?
got the deal,
Oh,
but I
right.
can't talk
Okay.
about the person that I'm writing it with yet.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so how? Oh, so you didn't remember how you met Allie Willis, but
Yeah, I don't remember how I met Allie, but I met so many people through Allie Willis. Cassandra Peterson, very dear, dear friend. Paul Rubens, so many different cool people.
Yeah, I was supposed to have dinner with Prudence last week.
And Prudence, my darling Prudence.
So okay, so you're writing a book. So you are all right. We're wrapping. Pete, are there any questions before we go? Okay, let's get to a couple
Okay,
questions.
let's see. Pamela, is there anyone you regret being intimate with and why?
No.
Good.
There you go. Let me see.
I have no regrets at
Pamela,
all.
when are you planning your next yard sale? Norm.
The end of March. Please come. Last weekend in March. Big sale.
How do people find out how to get?
I also do rock and roll tours. Everything's at PamelaDeBar.com except my sales. You can find those on Facebook. I don't post those on my website. But And I have all these books, and I have rock tours, and I have so many wonderful things going on. My podcast, my column. I have an amazing column. I'm so proud of it. PleaseKillMe.com. Some of my best writing ever is there. They let me write what I want to, and it's just a thrill to be there.
Give us a sample column. Like, what might a column be?
I wrote
a recent one.
Well, I started with Altamont, and I've got much more into detail about being at Altamont with Mick.
Wow.
And then my most recent one is about my parents and a love triangle that went on in the family that is just outrageous.
Wow.
That I've never told. So anyway, PleaseKillMe.com, all my columns.
Excellent.
Anything else?
You know what? No, because all the questions were exactly the answers you were giving.
Oh,
yay!
So you were right in tune with the people watching. It's
okay,
awesome.
good. Well, thank you, Pete.
Yep, you
Pamela,
got it.
thank you so. Pete, Pete George come here for 1 second and say hi
I'm coming
before we
back.
go. This is Pete George, the rock and roll comedian. Pete, tell us about your show
Pamela.
that's coming up next week.
Hey, next weekend, Friday and Saturday, Youngstown, Ohio, the Funny Farm.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All the way to Ohio?
All the way to Ohio
Uh-huh.
for shows, and then I'll be having a date soon at the Irvine Improv.
Nice.
That was of today, and then I booked 6 shows at Pachanga Casino.
Wow, cool.
In July. So I will be there with Pamela.
You never know.
I'm going to have my guitar, so.
Next week we won't have Pete, but we'll have Hayden George, his son, and we will be with Tommy Chong. And what is more fun than that? But that's fun too. Anyway, so thank you so much for being with us. You have to jump because
I have to go
because
shut the camera.
Pamela has to go. Pamela, thank you so much for doing this. Mwah.
Thanks for having me. It
We'll
was
see you
fun.
guys. See you next.